Hello and happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's live. We have a very important and, in my opinion, interesting topic today, which is period health. Menstrual health, cycle health, however you want to call it. And I'm specifically wanting to talk about this topic because I do think that for us women, it influences everything, how we feel, how we lose weight, how we perform. And if you are a male and watching this, then it's still really great information because obviously 50% of the people that you deal with most of the time are women. It might explain some things too, or might simply open up some things for you as well. For me, when it comes to period health, I really didn't consider this as an important topic for the longest amount of time, really. In fact, I was on hormonal birth control for over 10 years, and I was actually like almost bragging that I didn't have a period for most of that time. And that was during the time where I was just like doing a ton of shift work and overtraining and just generally in my go, 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 go masculine sort of mode. And I was almost like priding myself with the fact that um, I I didn't have phases within the month where I was forced to slow down or where my body wanted me to slow down. I was like, oh, I don't need any hygiene products, or like I can function like a man all month long. That was kind of my mindset at the time. And nowadays I feel like I have made a 180 turn because I think like valuing our own femininity is so beautiful, and there are so many cool things about the ebb and flow of the woman's or the female energy in general, and going with that flow and like leaning into that flow doesn't just optimize or like allow us to optimize all of our outcomes and how we feel, but it's just also that's how we're made, in my opinion. And so I'm not saying that everybody has to come off of hormonal birth control or whatever, but I'm saying that having a regular period can be a beautiful way to like basically a health report card from your body, like what's going on with you. And if you don't have a period at the moment, that doesn't mean, oh my gosh, you need to freak out and there's something totally wrong with you. In fact, even though it's been many years, I believe over 4 years since I have come off of hormonal birth control, I still am at times, especially when I'm more stressed or when I have more things going on, more travel and so on, very irregular cycles, and sometimes completely missing for a month and whatever. So, but still, this is a good way for me to be reminded by my body that, there are still things I should be working on and that are perhaps not as optimal as they could be quite yet. So, when we're talking about period health, what are we actually talking about? Our goal is to minimize PMS. We still, even though I'm saying it's nice to go with the ebbs and flow, that doesn't mean we should be like in absolute pain having to stay home from any kind of activity for a whole week of the month. So we should be experiencing minimal symptoms. We shouldn't be having extreme pains, and at the same time, our cycles should be somewhat regular, at least for the majority of people. Meaning, somewhere between, let's say, 28 and 35 days, sometimes a little bit shorter, sometimes a little bit longer, can be considered normal. There are obviously personal fluctuations, but when we're trying to optimize period health, this is kind of where we're wanting to get to. And of course, this could also encompass simply restoring your period. You might be missing it completely after some time, sometimes after childbirth, whatever, and it takes some time, but sometimes also after dieting, and we'll get to that. Basically, first thing, because the first thing I obviously want to talk about is nutrition. So what can we do nutritionally to support our cycle, to support our hormones and our reproductive system? Total amount of calories is incredibly important. When we are dieting for too long, when we're in a calorie deficit for too long, our body is mostly focused on keeping us alive, and it's recognizing that our circumstances are not ideal for conception or for bringing another human into this world, and therefore it's not going to be optimizing your own sex hormones. So when you are dieting, just stay aware of your biofeedback, stay aware of your libido, of your energy levels, of any kind of spotting or irregularities. And oftentimes, I don't want to say it's unavoidable, but it's just sometimes part of dieting at times. And if you're like, if aesthetics at that time is more important to you than health, then your priority. But if your main priority over everything is health, then sometimes we want to pull out of the deficit earlier rather than later. So just something to consider, but it's not uncommon for a period to get lost or any way to reduce or to skip a month or to lead to some spotting on occasion. Very, very typical with bodybuilders and, other people that are cutting for weight loss purposes like weight sports and so on, very drastically sometimes. So just stay aware of that, and the specific macronutrients are also very, very important. By keeping or consuming sufficient protein, you can do a world of a difference for your cycle. You can essentially, like if you think of protein, all of our body, our entire body is basically made out of proteins. Proteins are building blocks of the body. That includes your eggs. That includes any uterine lining that you're shedding. That includes like all these things. So in order to create those, your body needs new protein. Very often when people come from a low protein diet and they start with macros and calories, one of the first things that they see is an improved cycle. And not just that, but also cravings going down during, or like PMS cravings, but cravings obviously in general as well, since protein is so satiating. Just in oftentimes even overall cramps and headaches and so on associated with PMS going down. That doesn't say that doesn't mean it always happens. I wish it would, but generally speaking, it is incredibly helpful. The next best thing you can do when it comes to period health nutritionally is consuming ample amounts of healthy fats. Keeping obviously total calories in mind, but if you look at your total fat profile and the majority of the fats that you're consuming is coming from processed meats or from your protein bars or in your dairy products and so on, not ideal. We do want to have some egg yolks, avocado, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, and so on in there. Why? Because fats essentially help our body produce hormones, and of course, your period is regulated by hormones. The other thing that, or I guess I have spoken about healthy fats before, and I kind of mentioned a rough guideline, which was not letting your fats drop too long below about a quarter of your total calories or a third of your body weight in pounds in calories, or in grams essentially. So let's say if you weigh 120 pounds, then at least 40 grams of fats would be ideal. At least. This is like the minimum type of thing. For carbs, people also have an arbitrary minimum, or some people, and they kind of say, oftentimes, this is really debated though, but oftentimes 100, 150 grams should be absolute minimum for a healthy cycle. But the importance when it comes to that really is quality. Of course, we have sugar, refined sugars, processed breads, and all that, and that really is not necessarily, or is not beneficial or conducive to a healthy period, even if you are craving carbs, and we'll get into some carb craving supplementations or alternatives later on. But generally speaking, healthy carbs should be coming from things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, some quinoa, some vegetables, any kind of green, specifically, also cruciferous vegetables. Why specifically cruciferous vegetables? Because they help our liver detox, and so they clear out the old or unused or not beneficial hormones in our body, essentially. So that's where we're at when it comes to step number 1 in regards to nutrition. And exactly just like I said, minimizing total consumption of refined sugars and also refined oils. So things like peanut oil, soybean oil, canola oil, all these highly processed things are best really minimized when it comes to our period health, as well as alcohol, especially the older we get. And I'm also including myself in that already, because already sort of early mid 30s I can feel that. And not just that, but particularly as we near perimenopause, menopause, limiting alcohol is just like incredibly helpful for hormonal health. We're not going to talk about specific irregularities when it comes to periods as we get towards menopause. I think that is probably a topic for a whole other call or chat rather, but overall, nonetheless, alcohol is not beneficial for your period health, and we all know that, but it's just always good to point that out. What might be beneficial for some people, as much as I love moderation, but some people really do benefit from limiting gluten and dairy almost altogether, or keeping it at that 1 or 2 times per month. Especially those with PCOS or endometriosis might benefit from that quite a lot. And here again, I'm highlighting the importance and benefits of cruciferous vegetables that really can go so far when it comes to helping our liver get rid of, for example, used up estrogen and so on. Another point that another couple of points that I want to mention here is that our cravings are different throughout the month, and most of the time there's a reason for that. Your body probably does want something specific at a specific time. So for example, something like keeping your carbs and fats more flexible can really help. So if you are someone who is really craving carby things pre-period, then by all means, as long as you're staying within your calorie window, go harder on your carbs and bring the fats lower, or vice versa. And healthy carbs, as I'm mentioning here in the next point, it could just be more sweet potato, more oatmeal, more fruit, and so on. And if you're craving more fatty things, more nuts, more fatty fish, more dark chocolate, more avocado, like really, even if at first you're like, oh, I really want those chips, but just try something else at first, salty sweet potatoes, or even homemade like a baked potato with quite a lot of salt on it, with a little bit of sour cream or guacamole. That could be doing absolutely the trick, and you're getting more fiber for it, more micronutrients. You're less likely to overeat on it. So even if I'm saying like listen to your body, also listen to the fact that you can kind of sometimes trick yourself into certain things. And yeah, for people that are really experiencing extreme fluctuations in hunger throughout the month, it can actually be helpful to cycle your calories throughout the month. So having like a higher calorie week the week prior or of your period, depending on when the hunger is highest, and then oftentimes the week after your period, we are really experiencing super low hunger. So that could be, the reduction or the balance of the two, and still evening it out, coming like across the month essentially. So for some people, that can work really well. I do also want to talk about other things such as supplements, so not just whole foods, but supplements can also be big when it comes to period health, particularly for people that had previously been on hormonal birth control for a long time and now they're coming off. And of course, they can also be beneficial when you're still on hormonal birth control, especially because the pill tends to deplete us of certain vitamins and minerals, or simply block the absorption. So I generally say that almost everybody can benefit from additional omega-3, magnesium, and vitamin D supplementation, unless you're someone who works outside and eats fish daily. and other things for magnesium, nuts and leafy greens in large amounts, but the majority of people are really going to benefit from that. And then depending on your dietary intake, so if you're someone who doesn't eat a lot of red meat or meat in general, you might want to consider supplementing with vitamin B, iron, or zinc as well, especially if you're someone who gets sick reasonably frequently. And then I just threw in some additional things for PCOS or endometriosis, because they can be helpful in general, and sometimes PCOS and endometriosis also go hand in hand with insulin resistance, and so those things can potentially also help with that, particularly inositol or NAC, which is basically just another, well, not just another, it's another anti-inflammatory supplement. Vitex can help us, especially with progesterone. So if you are kind of low in progesterone or estrogen dominant, etc., that can kind of help balancing the two of them out. And yes, of course, like chromium, folate, etc. Speak to your physician, of course, but these are just some general recommendations that have shown to be helpful in many, many studies as well. When it comes to training, lack of movement, but also excessive movement, both can affect our cycle negatively. In many cases, I do think it is beneficial to continue with some kind of movement throughout your period. Most certainly steps, walking, even if you're feeling sluggish, and when I'm saying, listen to your body and give your body rest, but still getting some joints, some movement into those joints, and also in the lower back, where a lot of people do hold tension and have pain throughout or before their period, can be very, very helpful. However, excessive training, like in general, can just be something that adds to excessive cortisol, and therefore could be a contributor for somebody missing their period altogether, especially if it's combined with a calorie or a long calorie deficit. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're someone who's doing a lot of HIIT training, CrossFit training, and those kind of really high intensity things that tend to be large stressors on the body. I also mentioned consider cycling or training around your cycle. What I mean by that is, again, like pushing it really hard, perhaps the week after your period or the second week after your period, and when usually energy is highest, and really kind of almost deloading or like basically reducing your RPE, rate of perceived exertion, to like 7 or 8 for the other week of your training, whether that be pre-period week or week of your period. I do mention that like steps on a daily basis, no matter what, are awesome for mental health, for blood pressure, all the kinds of benefits, and strength training in general is recommended for period health at a obviously moderate intensity overall, as it boosts hormones and also mental health, adrenaline, like just so many good things that are all influencing your period health in the end. And then lastly, we cannot negate the importance of sleep for period health as well. We cannot negate the importance of stress management for period health as well. And lastly, endocrine mimicking chemicals, the 3Ps, which I have also done a whole live chat on basically hormone health, where I go more into detail with those. But we are all exposed to endocrine mimicking chemicals, whether we want it or not. And the 3Ps are basically plastic, parabens, and pesticides. So if you are able to manage and to limit those in any way, you're doing your body something good, because what happens with those things, they permeate through our skin or get into our body through digestion, and they dock onto hormone receptors, specifically estrogen most of the time. But what happens then, so they dock onto these receptors, and the hormones that are meant to dock onto the receptor don't have anywhere to go, so they float around in your bloodstream. So they often, especially if it's estrogen, make your estrogen go very high, and that it's as they are usually in balance, makes the others go low. So then you're estrogen dominant, and that leads to a whole cascade of things. So by mimicking those things that come into your body, or by limiting those things that come into your body, you are lowering those chances of that happening, and you can do so by perhaps reducing plasticware in your kitchen, reducing it, swapping it with stainless steel, or perhaps those reusable mats for cooking, or when it comes to like plastic containers, use glass containers instead. All these sorts of things. Your shaker bottle you could switch out, or coffee mug, making sure that that's also not plastic, and all these seemingly small things, but they add up. Mostly, or for me, one of the biggest parts really is skincare and cleaning products, because they are so very heavily laden with parabens. So for those, I would really recommend, over time, you don't have to completely change your entire routine, but they run out eventually anyway, and here it is worth investing in something organic without those things, because you're directly applying it to your skin, whether that is when you're with your body wash, with your moisturizer, whatever it is. So just really look into those, and same with cleaning products, as they are so aggressive, and really make sure next time you go and purchase something, go for ones that are plant-based or organic anyway. And the last one, so we had pesticides, that's right. So the last one would be pesticides, also that is basically what, the chemicals that plants and food is sprayed with. So there are certain ones which are worth purchasing organic, and other ones where you're kind of wasting your money because they come with a shell or skin anyway. So for example, bananas, not necessary to buy those organic, since you're peeling it off anyway. Or other things. But there is a really great list to look up which ones are worth purchasing organic and which ones aren't, and that is called the Clean 15, which is obviously you don't need to purchase them organic, and then we have the Dirty Dozen, which we do want to purchase organic. So you can find this on ewg.org, which stands for environmentalworkinggroup.org. And they update their list every single year. So I would highly recommend checking that out for saving the money where it's worth saving it, and otherwise investing in your health where it's worth investing in. So in summary, our cycle is actually amazing. It's not just beautiful because we can potentially bring life onto the earth, but also because it is a report card for our own health, and it makes us gives us female energy in the end. They should not be painful though, or at least not very painful, and you should be able to go about your day-to-day life. Nonetheless, it is important to listen to your body when it comes to your period. Everybody's body is different, but these things hopefully will help you overall, all in combination, to optimize your cycle. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, queries, concerns, comments about it, I would love to hear about them. And otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and take those points to heart. And again, it's not one or two points that are going to be a game changer, but all of them combined on a consistent basis. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day.